considering race in college admissions. That's our first subject today on CNN10. I'm Carl Azus. It's good to see you this Wednesday. A trial has begun at a U.S. District Court in Boston, Massachusetts, and the case is expected to eventually make it to the U.S. Supreme Court. It concerns Asian American college applicants and the admissions practices at Harvard University, one of America's most famous and prestigious colleges. A group called Students for Fair Admissions is suing Harvard. It says the university discriminates against Asian American applicants and unfairly favors African Americans and Hispanic Americans. How? Well, when it comes to recruiting letters, Harvard sends them out to Black, Hispanic, and Native American students who have high grades and a score of at least 1,100 on the SAT. Asian American men are sent recruitment letters only if their combined SAT score is at least 1,380, and Asian American women a score of at least 1,350. Lawyers for the Students for Fair Admissions say this is discrimination. Harvard's admissions dean says it is not, that the process is used to get students who normally wouldn't think about applying to Harvard to do it. Asian Americans make up about 22% of Harvard's current freshman class. They make up 6% of the U.S. population as a whole. In the past, the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that race can be considered as one factor in college admissions. This is part of something called affirmative action, which aims to encourage businesses and colleges to have more members of minority groups. The group that brought the lawsuit against Harvard was founded by people who oppose affirmative action. It says that in addition to Harvard's recruiting letter practices, the university manipulates students' personal ratings to benefit Black and Hispanic applicants, but to disadvantage Asian Americans, and that the practice is illegal because it amounts to racial balancing. Harvard says it considers race only to help certain applicants, not to count against them, and that it needs to do this in order to reach its educational goals, which include a diverse campus. The case is significant because it could influence how schools recruit and admit students in the future. The trial is expected to take 3 weeks. 10-second trivia. What is located between San Francisco and Hawaii? The Great Pacific Garbage Patch, the South Equatorial Current, the Spratly Islands, or the Bering Sea? This location is where you'll find the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, a floating trash pile that's twice the size of Texas. A giant U-shaped pipe is now floating through the Pacific Ocean with a mission that's even bigger than it is, to clean up the sea. This is part of a project by a group called the Ocean Cleanup Team. It's raised more than $30 million for this effort since 2013. It's hoping this pipe helps collect 50 tons of trash by next April and most of the garbage in the ocean in the decades ahead. Critics say despite the pipe's 2,000-foot-long size and the nearly 10-foot depth of its net, it's still too small to make a significant difference. And if it malfunctions or gets damaged in a storm, it could create even more garbage in the ocean. But if it works as planned...
What we see here are actually the stomach contents of a single sea turtle that was found dead 2 years ago.
This was all in one sea turtle?
One sea turtle.
Look at all that plastic.
Our oceans are already teeming with plastic, but an audacious new plan to clean them up is just getting started. There are approximately 150 million tons of plastic in the world's oceans, and a recent UK report predicts that that number will triple in the next decade. Pieces of plastic in the ocean can kill sea life, threaten industries like fishing or tourism, and negatively affect our health when they end up in our food.
That plastic is still going to be there in 1 year, it's still going to be there in 10 years, it's probably still going to be there in 100 years. Only if we go out there and clean it up, this amount of plastic is going to go down.
One young Dutch inventor and his team have their sights set on solving the plastic problem. How? Meet Wilson, aka System 1. It's an almost 2,000-foot-long floating pipe with a net hanging below. No motors, no anchors, no crew.
If you look around the world, there's plastics washing up on beaches. Basically, we designed an artificial coastline here as a method of taking the plastics out of the water over there. The wind is like propelling the system through the area such that the open end of the U, so to speak, is going forward.
So it's kind of like a catcher's mitt for ocean plastic.
Yeah, exactly. And then every couple of months there is a boat coming, a bit like a garbage truck in the ocean, and that takes the plastics out there on the boat and brings it back to shore.
It's a seemingly simple solution to a complicated problem, but critics have worried about the system's effect on marine life.
Are these the tubes that we see out there?
Yeah, so we have the floater at the top that obviously keeps it afloat, but also prevents plastic from going over it, while we have this screen underneath it that prevents plastic from going under it. So we don't have anything that can entangle marine life. And what happens is that the current flows underneath it, while the plastic which floats will remain in this zone in front of the cleanup system.
You obviously have a ton of support for your project, but there's also a lot of critics out there who are saying, you guys are just skimming the surface of this problem and you're not dealing with microplastics.
92% of the plastic isn't microplastic, but are larger objects.
It's not microplastics yet.
Right, so it's kind of a ticking time bomb. The sooner we get that out, the better.
On September 8th, the Ocean Cleanup Project towed the system out of the San Francisco Bay. They billed it as the largest cleanup in history. That's because they're starting with the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, a floating mass of trash more than twice the size of Texas.
People actually do really care, and they do want this problem to be solved, which makes me hopeful that if we get this first system working, that then we can actually get this to scale.
He says the first haul of plastic is expected to come back in the next few months. The group plans to make consumer products out of recycled plastic from the patch.
This pair of sunglasses, we already made this from plastic coming out of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
But the ultimate goal? To clean up 90% of ocean plastic by the year 2040.
Back in the day, people said, well, there's no way to clean this up. The best thing we could do is not make it worse. But to me, that's a very uninspiring message. Everyone wants the future to be better than the present. That's what we hope to achieve with this cleanup.
In Denmark, where the average life expectancy is 79.5 years, there's a word called hygge. In France, whose life expectancy is almost 82 years, the term is raison d'être. And in Japan, which has the world's second highest life expectancy of over 85 years, the word is ikigai. There are similarities between the terms. Today we're explaining what that means in Japan.
Ikigai is one of my favorite words. It's a Japanese word, and it really means your sense of purpose. If you go to Japan and you look at some of these cultures in Japan that are particularly long-lived and ask them, why do you live so long? Oftentimes they'll say ikigai, your reason for being. Some people spend their entire lives looking for their ikigai. Think about the things that you love, the things that you care about, and also think about what the world needs. One way to really try and find your ikigai is to say, look, if money were no object, if I was no longer doing things in pursuit of any kind of material things like money, what would I regret not having done with my life? It can help with your sleep, it can help lower some of the rates of chronic disease, and it can help you just feel better overall, more engaged with life. You'll know it because you'll feel it. It's that flow-like state. It's ikigai that could help you live to 100.
Back in medieval times, longships carried Vikings around the world. Some really prominent Vikings were even buried in them. That's what this is thought to be, a sort of Viking coffin. Recently discovered in southern Norway, the ship measures almost 66 feet long. Finding something like this is rare. Only 3 other well-preserved longships have ever been found in Norway. There are no plans to dig it up right away, but scientists hope to run some tests on it in the months ahead to find out what kind of condition it's in. The ship's been buried for centuries. Does it harbor treasure, a buried Viking or queen? Does it hide something piratical? Or is there just Norway to find out? This is the first time it's made waves since it went underground. Who knows what kind of sails it'll tell? I'm Carl Azus, and that's CNN.